I want to talk about my upcoming Cosplans for the next year and things that I've learned in this past year on this channel, creating cosplay, doing what I love to do. In the past year, my projects included the Maid Saw Man dress that I did, the purple glittery maid dress for Reze, Edelgard, Lucy, I did like a fairy costume, Raeliana, and Vivi. So I feel like I'm forgetting someone, but I don't know who I'm forgetting. So, not everything has to be learning experience, but something I did want to talk about this past year was my Edelgard cosplay. So, I absolutely love Edelgard. Her and Hilda and Baby Annette are like my favorite Fire Emblem characters in Three Houses. This cosplay created a lot of pain for me because I was learning a lot of new skills and I had to do a lot of things I would have never thought about doing, if that makes sense, like the ends of the cape or the way the top was done, and there's just, or the skirts are super weird. There was just so many little things in the cosplay, required a lot of thought and detail, right? That was really challenging. It did not get into any cosplay contests. I believe I submitted it to 2 different cosplay contests for the novice division. So I take it was just pretty bad. I was really proud of myself for it though, because I had to learn a lot of things and, you know, there's just a lot of growth that happened. And it was also quite humbling because, you know, there's that whole surge of pride, like, yeah, I made this cosplay. And then you get denied by one contest and you're like, well, I thought it was pretty decent though. It's my best work yet. And then you enter another and then you're just kind of like, okay, I get it. So that was a really humbling experience for me. And then I created after that the Lucy cosplay, which I also hated. I didn't hate my Edelgard. I'm actually still really proud of myself for it because at the time that was the best I could do. And I see now what's wrong with it, but I'm really happy with what past Callie did, you know? So Lucy cosplay did from Cyberpunk Edgerunners. I don't know the right way to say it because I was given a small amount of money to make it in 7 days, so another artist could use it for their like thumbnails. They're like a musician, so it was very rushed, and I wasn't very happy with the work in the end, although it worked out for that agreement, I suppose. I didn't take a step back and make 2 things: mock-ups and take the time to really make my details look clean. Like, there was a lot of very messy spots on both, and I didn't make mock-ups for either, so I didn't really know if things were gonna fit me. And I've tried to learn from that and be like, okay, if I have to make mock-ups 3 times over, I have to make mock-ups 3 times over. So that's something that I embraced for both Raeliana and Vivi, and both of them got into cosplay contests and won their categories in cosplay contests. It goes to show taking the extra step really helps, and honestly that's been a big life lesson for me, is taking a step back and kind of, you know, breathing, because I've always been somebody who rushes stuff quite a bit and gets stuff done. Like, I was always in school, I was the first kid done with my test every time. That did not mean I was getting a 90 on that test though, it just meant I was so anxious I wouldn't finish on time. So I've always been that way. I've always just been so nervous about time that I rush things. But with Raeliana and Vivi, something those 2 had in common is I put a lot more care into my fabric choices. So I learned about, this year I learned about fabric textures, right? So I took some costume design courses in college and I didn't really understand it at the time like I do now, when my professors were like, we'd go fabric shopping all together and they would look at my fabric choice and they'd be like, try this one instead. And I would always notice it's textured, right? And I didn't really understand until this past year what a difference texture and fabric makes. Like with Raeliana, instead of just going with a plain green, I don't know, I would not even use satin. Last year I learned not to use satin, okay? But I don't know, instead of just a plain green twill, let's just say, I learned, like, I used a jacquard with a lot of detail, right? And that wasn't necessarily canon, like it's an anime, everything's gonna look 2D, but I slapped myself really hard. You have to add the real and dimensionality, I don't know how to pronounce that word, dimensionality, is that it? Into 3D-ness, into 2D-ness, right? Where you have this anime, you have to adapt it into something a lot more textured and real, because if you look at like a stage play's costumes, they look really textured, right? They look really good because of that. So that's just something that I paid attention to closely with both of those cosplays. And I think the Ray Liana was clean, but it wasn't as clean as my Vivi. And then the Vivi wasn't as clean as it could have been, despite them both being winners, because I was rushing it too much. So something I'm gonna change for 2024 is I'm not gonna do cosplay contests. So I'm actually gonna send an email this week to the one cosplay contest I did sign up for and get into, saying I'm not gonna do it. And it might sound odd, or like, no, I'm not scared of cosplay contests. It's actually that I think I need to not be on deadlines for a year, if that makes sense. Because I realized my biggest flaw is rushing things and then not getting them done properly. Because I do think I have the ability to take a step back and really make something look good. But I won't know that, right, unless I'm not in a rush. I think the thing that does create the biggest rush for me, though, is creating YouTube videos of things, which I will continue to do. So those are still like my deadline of sorts. I really, really need to practice not rushing. And I don't think I can grow as a cosplayer unless I step back from contests for a year. Because contests create too much of a deadline and too much pressure. Although I do learn a lot, it's not like okay, the contests that I would like to do are like Sakura-Con and Anime New York City. I do not want to do local contests in the future, and I feel that there's a gap between my current abilities and where I need to be in a intermediate category in Anime New York City or Sakura-Con, right? So because of that, I'm gonna take a year to hibernate, you know, just focus on building stuff more so than contests, so I can grow and improve in every way possible. That also leads to, I'd like to learn foam smithing this year. It's a skill I feared for a long time, if you guys know me. At least I don't fear it as much as I fear wearing contact lenses. But foam smithing, I picked up a 3D printer this year. I got that down. I learned to 3D print. I do need to learn to properly paint my 3D prints. I got that down nonetheless. So now I have to learn foam crafting. I told myself if I could learn to 3D print, I have to learn foam crafting next. So I have about 3 massive things of Eva foam in my living room right now, ready to tear into. So that's my other little cosplay type goal. I'm thinking of how to word this without not sounding like a terrible person. I really am not a snob when it comes down to it, guys. By any means. I was just a few years ago putting stuff together on my bed because there was nowhere else to sew. I had a sewing machine on my bed. So I've been there, right? The reason why I don't want to do as many local cosplay contests is because there's a few people I really genuinely do look up to, but it's very, like, it's not like I'm learning anything. Does that make sense? Like, there was somebody near me at the cosplay competition that I did recently. I'm not going to say which one. I'm not going to say who, because they were an awesome person. They were so cool. But I didn't really respect this particular thing. They were sitting next to me, and they were in the category above me at the cosplay contest, and I was a beginner, right? So I wanted to move to the next category, and, you know, I aspired to, like, be qualified enough to be in, like, intermediate. And they are like, oh yeah, I hot glued all of this. Yeah, my seams are hot glued. I hope nobody notices. And I had this moment, and I was like, I need to stop local contests. Like, I need to just focus, because I really, really want to be so good at like, I really, really want to be skilled in the craft, right? Like, I want to learn, like, I love watching videos from people who work in professional costume shops and stuff, right? Because they know their stuff. Like, they are professionals. I want to look up to people. And there's so many people to look up to locally, but most of them aren't doing contests locally. Or there's a few people that I really, really do respect and look up to here, but they do like one contest a year, and they like, I couldn't get into those contests where my current skill set is. Like FanX, you have to be very, very good to get into FanX, and that's that gap I'm talking about where I'm not there yet. So that's why I'm gonna take a year to just focus on my craftsmanship because I want to stand next to people that I respect and can learn from. And I don't feel that I will be able to do that and get myself into that position to better my own skills where I currently am. So long-winded explanation, but that's kind of where I'm going. Now let's get on to my Cosplans, now that we've had that chat and you guys know what I'm working on. So I have two categories. I keep looking at my computer because that's where I wrote these down because God forbid my brain work. Anyways, so I made a category for craftsmanship cosplays I'd like to make, ones that I just make from scratch basically. Ones that I plan to buy or that I already have lying around, maybe right over there. And then also ones I'm undecided on, whether I want to buy them or make them, or even if I'm gonna make them this year at all. Start off with the ones that I do plan to make this year. First of all, I've kind of already gotten started on it. Is that cheating? Pre-time skip Edelgard, because I have the post-time skip Edelgard, and part of that project is I hope for my first foam prop to be Edelgard's axe. I cannot find any patterns for it on Etsy or anywhere. I cannot find pre-made ones, so I'm going to make it. I think it's a reasonable beginning prop because it's not basic, but it's detailed, but it's a basic shape, so I don't think it'll be too crazy. And I will also be at the same time making Aegis from Persona 3, because the Persona 3 reload is coming out in like a month and a half, but it's so exciting. Honestly, I was kind of into it in early college. There's like the very old like PlayStation one. So I'm doing that with a group and I have all the pattern pieces printed off. We're planning to shoot on January 15th though, so it'll be right when the year starts that I do that one. So speaking of not rushing, a little bit of rush and it won't hurt. It's a school uniform, so it's nothing too crazy. Next up is I would like to make Shadowheart from Baldur's Gate. I would love to make Shadowheart. I'd love to make both her armor and maybe make her rest clothing, right? But I really want to make her armor because that's part of me learning this foam smithing this year, right? Is I think that would be a project that would be a lot of fun to make. And it would be a massive challenge, but I think it's the kind of challenge I'd like to undertake. So next up, which is in my comfort zone, sewing heavy project, is I would love to do Arieth from Final Fantasy VII. I know I'm a bit late to it, but I got really into Final Fantasy VII recently. It was just one of those things I hadn't had the time for. I'm too addicted to Final Fantasy XIV. So Arieth's whole design is just so stunning and I love her dress and stuff, but the reason why I'm making it, there's a lot of versions online I could buy, but I want to sew it. Like, I genuinely want to just make it myself. I think it would be a lot of fun. Plus, her skirt has a lot of movement to it and all that I noticed in the game. But the ones that I'm seeing on cosplay sites, they're not as flowy and like oomph. You know what I mean? They don't have as much to them. So next up is ones I plan to buy or have already bought. First of all, I'd love to do Frinren, I can't pronounce her name, but you know, the elf girl. So I really have been loving the anime. It's so wholesome, also a tearjerker, such a tearjerker. And then I also want to do Kangel from Needy Streamer Overdose. Or Overload, or they renamed it, but I got into the game at the beginning of the year, and then when I'm at work, I watch other people play it. Also, I want to get into doing some more book cosplays from like A Court of Thorns and Roses and Fourth Wing. So maybe Violet Farah, maybe. I don't know if any of you guys are into books, but I'm really into books. I don't want to do too much of it, but I think it'd be fun to dabble in a little bit this year since I don't have to sew it myself. And for the ones I'm undecided on. So these are ones that I'm not sure if I'll buy it or make it, or if I'll even do it this year, but these are in my mind, hopefully. First off is Draculaura from Monster High. She was my favorite growing up and I want to cosplay her so bad. So next up is I want to do the Barbie Fairytopia outfit. I think that would be super fun. And next up is Bayonetta. I really want to cosplay for Bayonetta. Like, if I was prioritizing these like undecided ones, Bayonetta is probably 1 or 2. Next up, I think this has been on my list for like, I don't know, 6-7 years at this point, before I was even a cosplayer. I mean, I wanted it as a Halloween costume when I was a kid, but just Zelda from Twilight Princess. I think it's doable. There's a gazillion patterns out there. I don't know why I haven't. It's because I could buy it, but like, it's either, like, I just don't like the satin material that they use. Like, I would want to make it myself. It's like Arieth, where I would want to do it myself, you know? I still want to do someone else from Fire Emblem. I don't know who. I just made a note of that. So, yeah. Next up, this is one that I'm very much undecided on if I would do or not, but is Mao Mao from Apothecary Diaries, because I love her a lot as a character, but I don't think any cosplay companies are going to come out with the costume, which honestly sucks. Anyways, so the challenge for me with Mao Mao, I feel the same way about the My Happy Marriage protagonist. It's very historical, right? So it would take a degree of research, and it's something you really don't want to mess up. Like, really don't want to mess up, because if I were to mess up on the cosplay making it, it would be an insult to someone's culture, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to insult someone's culture. It's a walking on eggshells kind of cosplay for me. I really want to do it, but I think I'm a little anxious about accidentally messing something up, which I think, you know, it just takes a lot of care. You know, I'd want to handle it with caution and care. Also, I think cosplay in general for me, because that's all on my lists, but in general I'm heading in a direction where I'm trying to do a lot more characters that are not teenagers, and I think she would also be in that zone of teenagers that I really wouldn't want to cosplay either. But I really love her. Like, I love the character so much. It's genuinely just the cosplayer urge of, I love that character so much, I want to dress up as them. And I will touch back on the fact that, like I said, I'm trying to focus on more, not adult in an inappropriate way, but I mean adult as in characters that are just legitimately not teenagers. Speaking of the thing of trying to cosplay characters that are more in their, like, just not teenagers, I really love One Piece characters for this reason. One Piece doesn't do, like, 15-year-old everybody, and I really appreciate that. And that's because I've dropped a lot of anime because characters are like 16, or I don't know, there's just a lot of those occurrences, right? Where it's like, oh, look at this cute romance anime. Like, A Girl and Her Guard Dog was a really good example this past year, where I was like, oh, this looks so cute, but then it's a high schooler and this like 25-year-old dude that's just so weird. Things have made me feel very awkward, I think, getting older, and I'm not that old either, I'm 22. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, I'm going through a change where I just kind of feel like I want to stay away from younger characters. So many cosplays, so I feel like a lot more stuff that I do will be a little bit more gaming centered. But if anime come out with characters that are more age appropriate or just not teenagers, I will 200% go for them. Like One Piece, there's a ton of girls in One Piece. I think Robin's like 30, and I love that. I love that so much. We need more characters who are grown-ups, you know, that are cool. Life doesn't end after you're 18. Those are my cosplays. That's my little rant on kind of the direction I'm going, is I'd like to focus more on making cosplay and re-wearing what I currently have rather than getting a ton of new stuff. I'd also like to focus on characters that are not teenagers, and I'd like to focus on my quality and kind of take the time I need to grow. Anyways, though, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. These are just kind of my plans for next year and where everything is going here. If there's anything else you want to hear about, let me know. I usually check DMs and stuff too, so you can always reach out. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful new year.